out foraging while my son's at athletics. I'm going to get a bunch of these little plums that are just here all wild. Yeah, we'll see what else we find. Big load there, look. And here's some yellow slash reddy yellow ones and some kind of purpley ones. These ones are not, I don't think they're ripe, but I'm going to check them. And these purple ones look really ripe and nice. Like that. Quite small. Yeah, and there's some yellow ones back there again. These little yellow ones are juicy, but can't quite reach them. Blackberries this morning. They're all coming out quite nicely now, and I need to collect some of these as well now, basically. There's a stag beetle, I believe. Sure how many actual blackberries there are in just one little patch. This whole section has got kilos and kilos of blackberries coming out. Like literally everywhere. You know, enough for everyone. Look at the size of that one. Say, oh my god, this is like the motorway there, yeah? And this cherry tree is fully ripe, juicy cherries, and another one, and another one, and another one. And they're just at the side of the motorway. So I'm going to see if we can get one. Look, those wasps are feasting on that. Or bees, I'm not sure what they are. So they're like literally just in the process of turning and rotting. And there's just loads of them. I'm going to grab some. Here, all this fruit is just rotting. It's just kind of rotting, being eaten by flies. And, you know, it's next to the motorway. So most of these fruits have been eaten or rotted by flies or wasps, but there is, just before they go ripe, you can see these big juicy ones. Look, there's quite a lot still, but I might get a few more later. But look at that tree, that's perfect in the sense that that's not been eaten yet because they're not quite fully ripe, but I can see the wasps and the flies going in there already. And all this fruit will just rot on the side of the motorway. There's a bunch there that look good. Well, they're basically king cherries, you know, that have been planted at some point by probably when they built the road or something, you know. This is a long time ago, and every year they'll just rot and be eaten by flies. And I got myself a couple of handfuls, or more than a couple of handfuls, but most of it is rotten. It's just literally at the side of the motorway, that siding off the side of the motorway, off the side of a field, you know. Yeah, so that's me done a bit of foraging over the last day or two, and I've got plums, I've got blackberries, I've got cherries, king cherries, you know, big juicy ones. And they're all generally just at the side of the road, or the kind of siding alongside of a motorway slash a field. They're just rot anyway, and they're all on the floor often. You can just pick them up off the floor sometimes, you know, because the plums they're most ripe when they fall on the floor. And then what's going to happen to them? Well, they're just going to rot, aren't they? So they're most ripe when they do fall. So yeah, and there's a whole season of it ahead, about another month or two, maybe, yeah. But each thing comes in at different times, you know, so cherries, it's really the end of the cherries in some ways, you know. Not quite the end, but there's a tree there that's less ripe than the others, which is perfect in some ways, because it means that we can get some more in a few days. but there is like 4 trees there that are mostly rotted and eaten by flies, you know. Anyway, and they tend to taste better or something different about them when they're wild, you know. Don't know, it's hard to say. I guess the part of the reason why they're all eaten by flies and all that is because they're not sprayed. Because farmers will normally spray them with all sorts of whatever it is herbicides or something, pesticides and all of that, you know. And these ones are rotted like that because they're just left naturally, you know. And what it is the ones I've picked are not the super ripe ones, because the super ripe ones are all just literally attacked by flies and insects, wasps and all that, yeah. So these are the ones that I've picked are just like medium to just about ripe, and what, you know, they're just getting there. And if you leave them on the side for a day or two, then they'll just be fully ripe, you know, pretty much. You can leave them on the windowsill if you want, you know, like get a bit of sunshine on them. And yeah, it's just a nice activity that's quite mindful. It can be a bit like, oh my god, there's 4 trees have just rotted here, you know. But I've seen whole orchards. I mean, you can't really go and pick orchards, obviously, farmers' orchards, but I've seen many years. I've gone out cycling and walking and seen acres and acres and acres of apples just left to rot, you know, in fields. And I've seen pears the same, plums the same. I remember seeing a couple of acres of plums, massive, heavily cropping plums just left by the farmer to rot. And that's partly because of the prices of labour, all sorts of stuff, costs they get from supermarkets, all this shenanigans, you know. There's all sorts at play, really. Sometimes it's that the person's got too old and actually they don't have the energy for it, and they don't have any family helping them, and so it's in a state of decay, the farm, and so they're in the process of retiring kind of style, you know. But anyway, so blackberries, plums, season, cherries, end of the season in some ways. Those king cherries there are a good find. And what I tend to do is I notice in my head, I create like this, you know, map in my head of all of the, like, 5-10 kilometers that way, 5-10 kilometers that way, and all that. And in my head I've got this, like, not a comprehensive map, but a kind of marker points that I put in the map, you know, as in, like, you know, where the fruits are, the fruit trees that are wild, and some particularly good trees. I mean, not all of the trees, but if there's some particular good little patches, you know, that are never picked and they're always rotted if you leave it just at the side of the road, for example, and all that, and it's perfect, you know. You get some big juicy yellow plums, all sorts of stuff, you know. Apple trees, there's the odd apple tree around that just crops ridiculous style, and if nobody picks it, it's just literally at the side of the road, and it's like 20 kilos of apples or something just rots on the floor, you know. And it is that thing, one thing to notice. It's like when you're walking around, if you start to see fruit on the floor, it's like, oh, let's look up, and it's a fruit tree, you know. And often the ones that are on the floor are the perfect ones, and most of them might be rotting, but there's those perfect, ripe ones that have dropped on the floor, you know. And what's going to happen to them if nobody picks them up off the floor? Well, off the side on the pavement, you know, they're going to just rot, aren't they? So you give them a wash, and the most juicy, fresh bits of fruit ever. Anyway, so yeah, and I took an extra long walk this morning, and it's much the same, you know, where it feels good to get out, and I'll go around to the sauna and that, you know, and have a wash and then crack on with work, you know. But also, I like the idea that my wife will be happy, or my sons, if there's some fresh cherries for them to have, and there's a whole massive bowl of plums in the house, different varieties and all of that, you know, and blackberries. Quite nice, really, during the summer. And as you saw earlier, the blackberries, it's like literally tons of blackberries across the country, like hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of tons of them. And they're very juicy and good for you. Possibly in smaller amounts, because they are full of sugar, but yeah, seasonal picking and munching. Have a good day.